Well, hello, students. This is Mr. Reeves back with you, and I wanted to go over the skill quiz area of a circle. As you can see from our responses, we did not do so well, and some students have taken the retake already, and unfortunately, the results are not great there either. Since all students have not actually taken the skill quiz yet, I'm not going to be using the actual numbers on the skill quiz, but I'm going to work through these problems with a different number to show you how it's done. So students who haven't yet taken the skill quiz need to do so. Students who haven't yet taken the retake, hopefully this will help you there. If you've already done the retake, and you are interested in doing better, even though I said there's not another shot, talk to me and we'll see what we can work out. But please, I just want to encourage you, don't do retakes until you are confident that you know how to do it. I've had students get zeros on a retake, and I think you're just guessing and hoping that you're going to do better. And hope generally is not a good strategy for doing well in math. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. Area of a circle quiz. It says find the area in square inches of the circle below. Use 3.14 for pi. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. All right, so let's take a look at these questions. First of all, square inches. Why square inches? I had a student tell me, I don't know any of this square inches stuff or square yards stuff. All that means is when you find the area, you are finding the number of squares that fit inside an object. So if this is 6 inches across, then I'm finding the number of squares. If this is an inch up and down and an inch across, I'm saying how many squares that are an inch by an inch will fit, right? That right there, that square is called a square inch. A square inch. So we're saying how many of these square inches will fit inside this circle. And of course, this is tricky because a circle is curved, and that's why we need this crazy number called pi, which actually isn't 3.14. It's an irrational number that goes on forever, but we are being asked to use 3.14 for pi. Okay, so I hope that helps you understand a little bit better square inches. If instead of inches we're working with yards, it's just bigger squares. So these squares is what we use to find area. All right, so, and we are trying to find the area, and another reason many students are not scoring well is they're not reading the instructions carefully. It says to the nearest hundredth. All right, so just a reminder, when we have decimals, all right, so I'm just going to put a 0 here. This first one is the tenths place, okay? And the second one is the hundredths place. And the third one would be the thousandths and 10,000ths. Pretty much you're going to be asked either to go to the tenths place or to the hundredths place. So when you're asked to round to the tenth, you look at the next one over, and if it is 5 or bigger, you round up. And if it is smaller than 5, you round down. If you're asked to round to the hundredths, then you would go to the next place here. And same thing, if this number is 5 or bigger, then you round this number up. And if it's smaller than 5, then you round down. All right, so pay attention to what it says because it alternates between hundredths and tenths and even occasionally whole number. Pay attention to what it says to use for pi. Pretty much consistently, I'm sticking with 3.14 because that's what the testing does, and it just makes it easier for making sure everyone gets the same values. And make sure you're paying attention to the correct units. All right, and so let's go ahead and do this problem. It is asking us to find the area. All right, now you should know the area formula for a circle is pi times the radius squared. Pi times the radius squared. Now when you look at this right here, that diameter is 6, so the radius would be 3. All right, but I said I'm not going to work out this problem, right, because I don't want to give away the answer. So I'm going to go ahead and pretend for a minute that this were 8. All right, so if the diameter were 8, then the radius would be 4, right? Because the radius goes halfway across. So if the diameter were 8, the radius would be 4. And so the area would be pi times 4 squared. Now, you're perfectly welcome. In fact, you need to be using a calculator for these problems unless you want to be spending a long time doing things by hand. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a calculator, and I'm going to put in this formula. I'm going to start with the 4, and then I'm going to do 4 squared. So there's my squared button right there, 4 squared. You could also do 4 times 4 times. Now, scientific calculators have a pi button, and normally I would recommend using the pi button to get it as exact as possible. But because the problem has asked us to use 3.14 for pi, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So times 3.14. And when I do that, I get 50.24. So the answer I got was 50.24, and that would be in inches squared. Now it says to round to the nearest hundredth if necessary. You'll notice it's already at 2 places, so I wouldn't need to round. Now again, this answer is not one of these answers because I used 8 instead of 6. But again, you would use 6, you cut that in half, you have 3. So the difference you would have, instead of 8, you would have 6, and instead of 4, you would have 3. This would be a 3, and I'll let you go ahead and go from there. All right? Okay, so that's how you do the first problem. All right, let's take a look at the second problem. Find the area of the circle shown in square inches. Again, we have this radius that's given to us in inches. So when we find the area, we're going to be finding the number of square inches, inch by inch. How many of these squares will fit inside this circle? All right, again, we're going to use 3.14 for pi, and again, it says round to the nearest hundredth if necessary. All right, so area is still just like it was in the previous problem. It's not going to change. Pi times the radius squared. Now, again, I'm not going to do the answer with 15 because some students still haven't done this. So I'm just going to go ahead and make this one, let's say 18 inches. All right. So I'm going to do pi times 18 squared. That's going to be my area. Now, again, I'm going to go to my calculator. I'm going to go ahead and clear out what I had done before. I'm going to go 18. And then again, I'm going to square it. Again, if you don't have a squared key or you don't know how to do squared, you could just do 18 times 18. That's the same as squared. Squared means times itself. Times, and again, I'm multiplying by pi, but I'm not going to use the pi button. I'm going to use 3.14 because that's what they told us to use. And when I go ahead and do that, I get 1, 0. Whoops, I lost it here. Let's bring this back here. I get 1017.36. And that would be in square inches or inches squared. All right, now again, it says round to the nearest hundredth, but I've got 2 places and nothing else, so I'm done. Now, just a note on when you put your answer in, all right? Since it tells you in the question to find it in square inches, you could just, if you were typing this in, you could just put 1017.36 and you'd be fine. All right. In fact, that's probably preferable because unfortunately people have been getting it marked wrong. If you put inches, that answer is wrong. All right, the numeric part is right, but we're not finding the number of these little segments. When you put inches, you're saying that 1017.36 of these little segments is going to fit in there. But it's not. It's square inches. And since we don't really have a way on the keyboard to do this squared, all right, it's better just to put the number. But if you want to put the units, there are some options, all right? You can actually type out the word square inches, or you can type out the word, I guess it's words, inches squared, okay? You can also use the abbreviation IN for inches, all right? Please don't do this, okay? Don't put IN2 because that's not really correct. If there's a way to put inches squared to make that exponent, do it. All right, there's some tricks and ways to do it, but don't worry about it, okay? So either put square inches, put inches squared, or if you want to abbreviate IN, all right, like that. But you want to play it safe, just put the number because I have been putting the units in the question. So when you put 1017.36, you're telling me it's 1017.36 square inches because that's what I told you to find it in. All right. But again, just a reminder, I did this with 18. It's not actually 18, it's 15. So you would have to replace that 18 with 15, which means that answer is going to be completely different. All right. Okay, let's take a look at the next question. Here we go. Find the area of the hubcap shown in square centimeters. All right, well, the hubcap is just like the one we just did, right? The only difference is it's a picture of something instead of just being a diagram of a circle. So again, the area is pi times radius squared. Notice, by the way, now we are working with square centimeters because these are centimeters, not inches. All right. And again, I'm not going to do the one with 17, but it's the same idea. Let's just say it were 20, right? It would be pi times 20 squared. Okay. Hopefully by now you're seeing this really isn't that difficult. I really am wondering how some of you managed to get a 0 on this if you had done the practice, right? So again, I'm going to go 20 squared. And then I'm going to go times 3.14 for pi. And you can see that I get 1,256, right? And again, 1,256 would be fine to put that answer in just as that if it were correct. Remember, it's not correct, okay? Or you could put square inches or, oh, not inches, centimeters, right? So 1,256, you could put a comma if you wanted to on it. Either way, it should be correct. Okay, but remember, it wasn't 20 for this problem. It was 17. So that would be 17 squared, and then you're going to get a different answer there. All right, area equals pi times radius squared. All right, so then these last two were a little bit more tricky because you had to know more than just the formula. All right, one of the things that you're supposed to be learning is how to relate area to circumference. All right, so circumference was the previous lesson we did. The formula for circumference is either diameter times pi or 2 times pi times the radius. All right. And the area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. So if you take a look at these formulas, you'll notice both of them have pi and both of them have the radius. Now again, circumference, you can see we've got these cool little arrows going around. Circumference, it reminds us circumference is the distance around the outside. So they told us that the circumference in this case was 14 pi. The area, on the other hand, the area again is the space on the inside measured in squares, and that's pi times radius squared, and that's what they're asking us to find. All right, so what do we have to know for both of these? All right, pi we know. Pi is a constant. Again, pi is an irrational number, 3.14159. And it keeps going after that. If I just press the pi button and press enter, oh, great, it gave me pi. There is a way to make this. I'd have to change this. Let's see if we could do this to classic. Let me change that to classic real quick. It's not letting me do it here. All right, you know what? Let's not worry about that. All right, but pi is an irrational number that goes on forever. So both of these have pi and both of these have the radius. All right, so the question is, what is the radius of this circle that has a circumference of 14 pi? So again, I don't want to do this exact problem because I don't want to give you the answer, but I'm going to change this 14 pi, all right, and I'm going to pretend for a minute that it were 20 pi, all right? So we're going to change the problem, 20 pi. All right, so how can I find the radius? Well, look right here. It says circumference is diameter times pi. What does it say right here? 20 pi. So what does that tell you? Well, guess what? Pi is equal to pi, right? So what does that mean? That the diameter is equal to 20. So the diameter of a circle with a circumference of 20 pi would be 20. And the radius, as we talked about before, the radius is half of the diameter. So if the diameter all the way across, if all the way across were 20 centimeters in this case, then the radius would be 10 centimeters. So the radius is 10. So then if I went down here and I wanted to find the area, pi times, now I know that that radius is 10. And it would be pi times 10 squared, or 100 times pi. And in this case, if you look at the way the answers are written, they all have the pi there. So it would be 100 times pi centimeters squared. Now again, that's none of the choices because I did it for 20 pi. You're supposed to do it for 14. So if the diameter is 14, then what would the radius be? And once you know the radius, you just plug that in and you'll get it that way. All right. So I hope that helps you on that one. And finally, the last one. It says the diameter of a circle is doubled from 14 to 28. Which of the following is true? All right, so this one, again, it doesn't look any bigger. That's why it says not drawn to scale. These circles actually would not be the same size. This diameter should be twice as long, but I didn't want to give the answer away, so I made the circles the same size. All right, let's make this a little easier. Let's just make this 10, and let's make this 20. So we want to compare the areas. Well, the formula for the area is what? Pi times radius squared, pi times radius squared. Now, these all the way across are not radii. Those all the way across are what? Those are diameters. So the radius is half of that, right? So again, I'm not using these numbers. Let me scratch these off even more so we can't see them all. All right, I'm going to pretend that the diameter were 10. Well, if the diameter were 10, then the radius would be 5. And if the diameter were 20, then the radius would be 10, right? So what would the area be of this first circle? It would be pi times 5 squared, or if I rewrote that, it would be 25 pi, right? What about this one? This one would be pi times 10 squared. Again, it's radius, not the diameter, or 100 pi. Now take a look at those answers, okay? And by the way, these would be meters squared. Okay. Are they the area of, let's just take a look at them. Is the area of the second circle the same? Are those two the same? Is the area of the second circle twice as large? Is 100 twice as big as 25? The area of the second circle will be 14 meters larger. All right, well, that 14 was because this was 14 and this was 28. So in this case, it went from what, 10 to 20? So this would be 10. Is the area of the second one 10 square meters larger? Is this 10 bigger than that? Or finally, the area of the second circle is 4 times as large. Is this 4 times as large? One of these will be true. One of these is true for what I did, and one of these will be true for these numbers. All right, and it will work the same every time. So if you're clever, I just gave you the answer to this one, even though I used different numbers. All right, so I hope that helps you out, students, with the area of circle skill quiz. Again, hopefully you have not yet taken the retake, and working through this will help you. The retake is very similar. It just uses different numbers just like I did. Again, if you have taken the retake and you'd like another shot, please contact me and we will figure something out to give you a third try. Even though I said there are no third tries. What can I say? I'm a nice guy. Thanks for watching, guys.